He's staying with us right now.
Yep.
Okay, group, 11 o'clock. Let's call this meeting to order. We should do a little round of introductions since Greg Allen is on speakerphone and can't see us all directly, or maybe, perhaps he can.
I think so. Do we have a camera in here?
I think he's audio only. So, Greg, do you want to start?
Yes, I'm here.
Yep. Okay.
Great.
Pleasure to be at the meeting.
And Greg Swedenborg? Sure.
Julie Walker?
Mike Morgan.
Jim Kingwell,
Greg Bell?
and also present this morning, we're blessed with Steve St. Dennis.
No?
Bruce, you got it, you're
I'm missing Steve Sinkler.
You're meshing them together.
Is your brother here, Bruce?
Bruce St. Dennis.
Okay,
No, so Jennifer and Rusty.
okay. And we have on the agenda a consideration regarding the timeline, deadline for applications for TAC and TAF funds this morning. As late as this morning, an email came in from an individual I do not know, looking for an extension to submit for a TAF grant. There's no identification I see with a nonprofit, just a name, Erica Gilsdorf, acknowledged that we'd received an inquiry about extension of the deadline from that. This meeting came up because there were several of our traditional applicants suffered either confusion or had overlooked the actual deadline, and we're facing the possibility of having no programs put forward by some of the traditional recipients of funding. So I'm hoping to entertain a motion as to whether the deadline should be shifted from the October 1 deadline, which is currently passed, for an extension of some period, whether it simply be a single week or whatever we would consider. Part of that consideration involves timelines. Our hope had been that a November 3rd council vote on policy changes and TAF. Hey, Greg, might also be used for authorization for distribution of funds. We work backward from that. We have several things to get in. The interview times, which had previously been scheduled for October 6th or 7th, would undoubtedly have to shift. We had originally on October 13 grant discussions and recommendations to determine what recommendations we would make to council. So at this time, I'd like to know if there's anyone who has a motion that we might then further discuss regarding whether or not we would entertain a change in the October 1 deadline.
Could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
No finger pointing, but I'm asking, the question is this a process failure, miscommunication problem, emails weren't sent, or was this applicants didn't expect to get an email, therefore didn't read them? Did we screw up somehow? Or? Bruce?
What happened is, you remember there was a meeting on June 23rd.
Right.
We met with the council. On June 26th, a letter went out from Jim Kingwell to all the applicants, all the known applicants.
Mm-hmm.
And it said that the date had been changed to October 1st. So that was back in June, so people could forget.
Mm-hmm.
And subsequent to that, Jen, you said we posted it at least the meeting, at the post office and on the website.
Yeah, I put an extension notice at both post office locations, at City Hall and on the website,
Okay.
on the blue paper saying that we've extended deadline.
So we did due diligence. We tried to get.
The thing I noticed when you came over to my shop to say was, one of the people on the email was Kara, who of course was no longer there, but you wouldn't have necessarily have known that. So the only one I can think of would be the, Canopy Arts Association, because the email was sent to Kara instead of Lila. unless Lila was on that email. But even then, it's like you posted, they said, oh, we didn't see anything on the website, or we didn't see it. It's like, it was on the website, I saw it, so.
Okay.
Well, and on that one, it says Kara, but when you click it, it says Executive Director at CBA.
Okay, so somebody should have been checking that email.
Because I
Okay,
checked that too, 'cause I thought she was gone.
right, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Man, this happened.
Thank you.
And, you know, and it happened, so,
Things do happen.
yeah, so that's why we talked about it.
It's an unusual situation, it changed, I get it, okay.
I mean, I would put a motion forward to say October 9th. I'm not sure that's gonna buy anybody any time, but, I mean, we gotta get moving. 'Cause we already then, if I'm looking at my calendar, we're already gonna miss the October city council meeting.
Yep.
And it'll push that into November before they agree or, you know, bless something. So, I don't know if October 9th is enough for any of the people who are concerned or not, but,
Can I ask, I missed a meeting, and I guess at that meeting, it was decided to have applications submitted or by October 1. I guess, I thought that we were gonna put everything in advance until November to see how the COVID situation was, and then make a decision at that time. I mean, it seems to me that if we're talking about accepting applications and considering applications for events that happen in the next, 12 months, I would be very opposed to that unless they were online or, advertising or something like that. I mean, I don't see this, maybe I'm a Cassandra, but I don't see this, letting up anytime soon. And to have events like, the culinary festival or Savor or anything where you're cramming a bunch of people into tight spaces is pretty, unimaginable until everybody gets the vaccine or whatever, or gets COVID.
We do not know what the applications will be for.
Right.
I think that's a very strong consideration for what support we might give to anything that is, proposed. But we may see things that simply strengthen, institutions, for the long term as opposed to, invitations on event times. I don't know what we're gonna see, because we haven't seen the applications as yet. I assume everything will have to be modified or changed specifically because of COVID, and will be a strong part of our consideration. Point is good.
Yeah, I would say in general, I agree with all of what Mike said. However, my take on our committee is it's, at least, and maybe I can be told this is different, I don't think it's incumbent upon this committee to decide whether or not the city can hold events. It's up to the applicants to present an application for an event with a plan to deal with whatever the pandemic situation might be. We have to make an educated decision about that when we see it. And then I guess the city council, in my opinion, would make a decision on, well, we're not gonna do that. That's the city's decision. I think the TAP committee's decision is to whether we think the application deserves merit or not. That's my opinion. Although I do agree with Mike's assessment. I don't think it'll be over by spring.
I think when we were in our last meeting, it was decided we would do October, but, because if we get too late in the year, the first ones that might try to do an event will be,
They missed
I
it.
mean, they have to plan.
That's right.
They're gonna, if they can convince us there should be an event, they have to be able to have time to plan.
So, just for clarification, is there a motion on the floor that is dying for lack of a second?
Was there a motion?
I guess I need to make a motion. So I'm gonna make a motion that we move the deadline to October 9th for final, applications, I guess. And then we can adjust the other meetings.
What,
Again, I think it would make sense that the motion has the follow-up meeting, because that would be the date that they're due. But you're also gonna be committing yourself to 2
Yep.
days after that, And so you could do it in two separate motions.
Okay,
And also, Julia said something about when the council might be able to meet on this.
yeah.
It's set for the November 3rd meeting.
Oh, I had October 20th.
Well, no, the October 20th, this would be the joint meeting.
Understood.
Oh, I see.
And what we recommended, what we said to council, if you want, you can make that a voting meeting and get this done. But otherwise, it's gonna be November 3rd.
So we still could squeeze it in?
Yeah.
Okay, then that's not too bad.
Now, and also, you could also do it November 10th, because they've got a workshop that day where we can make part of it a special meeting for them to vote.
Okay. Okay, so you want the motion to be all of it?
Well, no, I'm just saying, you need someplace in the motion so that you folks agree on when you're gonna meet,
Okay,
for
all right.
the follow-up meeting.
Well, first, let me put my motion out there that the deadline can be moved to the 9th, and then if that gets approved, then I will add the date.
Will you clarify what day of the week?
That is Friday, October 9th. That is 5 days from now.
Four.
Is there any,
I second the motion.
Okay. Any discussion of the potentials of that?
So my discussion now that I've seconded. I think 4 days is tight, but they all knew on the 1st that they missed it, so they've had a week
More than a week.
yeah, so I think, yeah.
This actually came up, I think, on the 30th or the 29th, from what I understand from Stephen Sinclair, so.
Apparently, there was ripple notification of shock at about that time.
Okay.
I don't wanna be, I'm not trying to be tough about this, but
You have to set a deadline.
this is an unusual situation, but there was communication, and people, whether or not they got it, they could have got it. If they didn't get it, they could have called, they could have come by City Hall, there's a lot of things they could have done. Right, and they didn't do it. So as I said to you, Jim, when we talked briefly, in my opinion, it's like a one-time, we'll do it this year, but we're not doing these extensions again. That's my opinion. This is an unusual situation we're in.
Okay, shall we take a vote on this?
Aye.
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 Greg, Alan?
Yes, I'm here.
I
I think that sounds very reasonable to me. I agree.
I think this motion has passed.
That carried.
Okay.
I'd make it unanimous. The chair.
Is anyone opposed to us moving 1 week ahead with everything?
I think that makes perfect sense, which would put the interviews on the same days of the week, but it would be the 13th and 14th.
And Stephen told me if we move everything just same day, same time to the next week or the week after that, he doesn't need to be phone called. He's like, I can just move that onto my calendar.
Okay?
So,
Debbie and I are in Eastern Oregon, the 12th through the 15th, next Monday through Thursday. I'm not here.
what about the 20th and 21st?
Back on Friday the 16th, so yeah, that's no problem. Don't, delay it for me, just saying I'm not here now.
That's, these are
I had the
important.
vacation planned around all these dates.
What was the date again?
Looking for interviews on the 13th and 14th.
We'll be back in the saddle Friday morning,
Friday morning.
that week, 16th. And I'm happy to read my homework, Jim, if you guys do it that way.
I mean, there would be minutes taken, so that's the good news, so.
It'll also be recorded.
And
recorded
oh, okay, got it.
and
On
on,
YouTube.
Okay, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Rusty.
so,
You can't get away from wrestling.
would there be an opportunity to weigh in during one of those days? I know you're.
I don't know,
Yeah,
by a cell
okay.
service, sure.
Okay.
We're in, out by Madras, trying to stay ahead of the Lions Head fire, so.
Well, so the only deal is even if you couldn't listen at the time of,
I
you
could.
could watch it later,
I
and
could.
by the time we come to discuss the numbers, you would.
I should
Then
have.
you'll be back
up
for
to
the,
speed, yeah.
back for voting,
Oh, yeah,
at least,
be back on the 16th.
for the assessment.
Now, Bruce, if we kept 13, 14, we could still meet with city council on the 20th,
Correct.
and then we could leave our November 3rd
Wait a
date.
minute.
Well, you would have to meet.
No.
before
We
that.
have to meet before they do,
Oh, shoot.
before we have a recommendation.
That's right, I apologize. That would, the 20th would be our meeting where we discuss the numbers.
Although, wait a second, in prior years, have we always had a separate meeting after
Yes.
the interviews?
Yes.
Let's continue to do that.
So the 20th would become a get-together and discuss the numbers, so what we want to present to city council. And we could do that on the 3rd, and then they could vote on it on the 10th, is what you're saying. Is that correct? Bruce?
Did you run that one again?
Sure. So we meet, interviews 13, 14. We meet to discuss the numbers October 20th, determine what we're going to send to city council. Then we send it to city council on November 3rd, and they can vote on it on the 10th.
Well, yeah, they could decide whether they would vote on it on the 3rd or the 10th, putting it off.
Is that correct, Bruce? They get to decide when they want to vote on it?
Yeah, I think what we're changing is that you were gonna have a joint meeting, and so
Right.
this schedule takes the
Mhm.
joint meeting out, and then putting it on the third.
Yes.
Right.
Will that work?
Yes, that can work.
That
Okay.
seems to make sense in my timeline as well.
Then I'll make a second motion. We move our interviews to Tuesday the 13th, Wednesday the 14th,
From 1 to 4.
1 to 4.
to 4. Our meeting to discuss the results of the interviews would be Tuesday, October 20th.
Is there,
Oh,
is that in concrete, the 20th? Is that just a convenient day on the
that
calendar?
was the convenient day on the calendar.
I have
Everything is subject.
I have a cardiology appointment in Portland on the 20th. I'm so,
What about the 21st?
I'm fine. Just the 20th, of course, it's the 20th.
Anyone else?
I'm wide open on the 21st.
21st? Anyone?
I'm adaptive.
Thank you very much for your flexibility.
So, then we meet to discuss and determine the numbers Wednesday, the 21st.
First.
At what time?
If
You have to ask
the
Jennifer.
available 1 to 4, then we would do 1 to 4.
1 to 4 works.
Okay.
And then we'll take it to city council on November 3rd.
All right.
Everybody get that?
Back.
I second it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you,
A
Greg.
different Greg seconding.
Okay, so I'm taking this
1 to
to
4.
edit.
Got it.
I'm just asking, before you get too far. The reason for the meeting on the 20th was so that each application could be discussed. And there's time for that because of the dedicated meeting. If we go to the 3rd for that discussion, that's already gonna have approved the agenda. And so I don't know if there might be time, I don't know if some of the points that, Mike brought up today, I don't know if there'll be anything else in talking about that. That might be worth having a dedicated meeting with the council to, talk about, what should we be doing this year, that kind of thing. Are there alternatives?
Yeah, I'd like to know what the urgency is. I mean, what's the big deal about, October, November? I mean, we could be doing this in January.
Not if you're planning an event for March, you can't.
You're not gonna have an event in March.
That was, Mike, that was the idea.
Didn't know that.
If somebody wanted to shoot for March, we had to give them time.
But, I mean, everybody knows there's not gonna be any, I mean, is everybody whistling in the dark here? I mean, there's not gonna be any event. Get Lit's not gonna happen in April. I mean, they're smarter than that. 100 people in the ballroom, come on. And let's get real here.
Well, I, for one, am very real about this. Although, what I'm saying is, I think it's up to the applicants to present what they think they could do to mitigate the situation. We make a decision and let the city council make the call. I believe, Mike, I'm with you. I think we're in a bad place. I don't think this is gonna be resolved by June next year. But my feeling on this, when we talked last meeting that you missed, was this is a process, and it's an annual process. My thinking was, let's continue the process, whether or not we have an event or not, we have the process, so we don't drop the sequence of events we do every year and get out of the habit of doing this. That's all. That was my position when we had the last meeting, I think. Again, I think.
Getting back to Bruce's idea, I think we do need a special meeting with the council, just on the two organizations.
I'm good with that.
And that could be in early November as far as I'm concerned.
The risk of throwing everything off the rails, might it make sense to have the meeting on the 20th, have the discussion with council, and then set your schedule after that?
Set what schedule? Oh, so don't have the interviews.
I'm just saying that's an alternative, because I think it would make sense to have a philosophical discussion about, how this is gonna look and how it's gonna happen. So maybe you have that as, the two teams, and then decide, should we go, how should we handle it? But there's just some big philosophical questions here and some logistical questions that probably need to be addressed, and we're trying to keep things in a certain order, and I don't know if they have to be in that order.
I think you're coming from an assumption
Mm-hmm.
that people are going to propose things similar to what they have proposed in the past. And I don't think we can make that assumption. I think there'd be more content for that philosophical discussion if we'd had the interviews for proposals to know what direction these nonprofits and applicants are going in. So I'd like to at least have the interviews before we have a discussion with city council over,
I agree. I don't think we can make an assumption that everyone's just going to put forth what they did last year and let's just keep going. I mean, I think they're all smart people and understand that the world is different. So we don't know what they're going to come up with.
Yeah.
It seems like we shouldn't be making that assumption, and we can obviously in the interviews push back hard on, you really think you're gonna put 100 people in the ballroom? How on earth are you gonna actually do that?
right.
In Mr. King, you vastly overestimated my cognitive ability, because I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about policy.
Sure, sure. I think the sequence of those things might be important, though the timing and question of urgency is a real valid one, not trying to jam too many things through in too big a hurry.
What happens on the 27th, Bruce? Is city council meeting on that day?
No, it's open.
So we could have a joint
I mean,
meeting?
We have to be careful, because this room's getting so much use.
Yeah, I bet.
We say it was open. Okay? 27th is the room open?
The 27th, the room's supposed to be open yet.
They're
I
serving
printed the calendar
I like
before
that.
I came in.
It's
turkey
supposed to be
sandwiches
open. I like
after.
that.
But the thing would be, would the council be able to make that meeting?
Yeah, that's right.
That's-
Right, then the next step is we send out and say, can we change the 20th to 27th?
Because that's when we were gonna meet with council, was the 20th, right? Yes, yes.
So what is the content of the motion being
Well,
discussed?
it just got changed, because that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah, so let's narrow down what it actually is in that motion.
Do you want me to read the motion?
Yeah.
That would be good, thank
Really
you.
move for interviews on October 13th and 14th from 1 to 4, the TAC meeting to meet on October 21st to discuss the results between 1 and 4, and then we were gonna take to council on at the November 3rd meeting. And then Swedenborg seconded.
So the only change to that would be we take it to council in a joint meeting on the 27th, if they can make
Well,
that.
Yeah, the other thing in that potential timeline is that, Mike's concern can come up at that point with the city council saying, look, we're rushing this thing through too fast. And leave it in their hands to determine the timeline for the meeting with us and decisions. Does that let all the ideas get out into the, discussion?
Can I make one suggested amendment? Is that, the meeting with the council, let's say it's the week of the 26th,
Mhm.
because if they can't make the
Thanksgiving.
27th, we gotta bring it back and have another meeting.
Oh.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Can we make the motion, a meeting with council the week of the 26th? Because if you say 27th and they can't, we have to meet again to talk.
There's no fudge factor, is what you're saying.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yes. So in other words, we'd be
Well,
open that whole week
the-
to figure out a
Well, we
time.
shoot for the 27th.
The other thing we could do is limit this motion to set the interview times and our discussion time,
That's true.
and leave open the question
The question of when we
when
can,
we can,
with the understanding that we want to meet with council ahead of the voting time,
For the 26th.
so that we
My
can discuss.
preference, I think there's two, is that we give them as much notice as we can.
yep,
So, and even if we just say the week of the 26th, no, we're giving them notice.
okay.
I'm okay with that, okay, so should I restate it?
Is, Greg, are you okay with that, with your second?
I'm okay with that.
The week of the
Yeah.
26th to follow up with council, that would be a meeting just with us and council about that subject. So we're not on the agenda with all the other things.
Right. You can amend your motion
Okay,
to that, and then Greg can.
okay, I am amending my motion to to meet with council on the subject the week of the 26th.
Second that.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Let's call for a vote. Greg Allen, would you like to weigh in on this one, voting on
Yes.
the motion?
I agree.
Okay. I'm doing a roll call vote rather than simple statement. Greg, Sweetwater?
Yes.
Julie?
Aye.
No.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay,
Did I have a no?
you did,
Okay.
yes. Mike?
I want to make sure I had it accurate.
Okay. Well, that completes our timeline. And the main purpose for this meeting. Is there anything that needs to be brought up for the good of our sanity or good of the order?
Did we get any applications on time, or were they all,
Yes, we did.
oh, we did? Somebody did, actually.
Oh,
submit.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Not the normal ones we would have expected.
Actually, we had one application that went into pause on that final day that was ready to hand in, but, waiting for any changes that would be
Okay.
allowed.
So can I go over what I was gonna do after this meeting? So I'm gonna email all of the applicants, current ones who submitted applications and the past ones in the past, and just let her know that the deadline has been extended until October 9th at 5 PM.
Yep,
And, remind people that if they've already submitted, this is the timeframe that they'd like to make changes on their application. And then I will put the packets together on Monday and have them ready for you guys to pick up. And then we'll do and I'll also let them know in that email that interviews will be scheduled on the 13th and 14th between 1 and 4.
Okay.
And I'll start getting people who've already submitted schedules, because that way we can they've already submitted, and we might as well get them signed up. And then anybody new coming in, I'll schedule them on Monday.
okay.
Perfect.
So I have a question for Bruce. What's the current balance in the past?
I believe it would be, I'll send an email out, but I think it should be in the neighborhood of about 80,000. And what that would be, 45,000, collected from the fourth quarter, we budgeted 0. And then the funds came in from, the county for the jail, and the 1% that we get, 7%, 1%. And, we use those funds to pay the loan.
To pay back the loan.
So that was probably another 33,000, but I'll give you the exact numbers after the meeting.
So, yeah, it was like 102,000 borrowed from us, plus the, yeah.
Well, I guess my question leads to why did we, loan the city the money to purchase the school rather than just grant it out of the TAP fund? Bruce?
The reason that happened is that we wanted to get school closed, and we needed the funding source, and you're correct, it is in line with what we're, the appropriate use. about this. So the council made the decision to do it, and then said that we would do a repayment. I don't think you folks, and it was over 3 years, and I don't think that you folks ever said yes, no, or whatever, but, as a result of us taking the money and then our commitment to replenish it, the first time that we had the funds, we replenished for the first year.
Well, I was a little surprised. I thought, you know, gee, that's a pretty appropriate use of TAP money. And, you know, I would recommend, if I have an opportunity to recommend to both this group and the council, that the city not have to repay the loan, as opposed to using it, you know, just saying it's a grant from TAP. Because, you know, I think it's the highest priority currently in the city to develop a performing arts, a cultural center, whatever. And, I mean, what is it, $100,000 roughly? Was the loan?
102.
102.
Yeah. I mean, that's only a quarter of what our normal annual, less than a quarter of what our normal annual revenues are for the tax, you know, for the 1%. So, I don't know how, I just throwing it out there for conversation, but, you know, I would really like to see, I'd like to see the school project move forward rapidly, and, you know, with whatever resources that the tax can throw at it, I think it's good. I mean, there's so much, it's gonna be a huge amount of money for, I mean, you bought it for 400, and then you're probably gonna have to put almost immediately 400 into it to, I mean, just to get for basic utilities.
Safety.
The basic infrastructure more. So, you know,
If I can, just kind of along those lines, one of the things that we're facing on this project is the cash flow issue. Because the funds that we get, you mentioned that on a normal year, it'd be like 400,000, but, we can be significantly less this year. But those, come in July and January, so that's the fund that we get from the county. And so we have used funds that we got in July. And so we don't have no bunch of money in that account. We've hired an engineer, architect, to go through and do a heavy-duty survey throughout the whole building, looking at all the issues, the asbestos, the wiring, everything else. And, we funded that out of the general fund, but whatever comes up, if we decide to do anything, we don't have, you know, cash to get that started. Although, people are gonna shoot me for this, I think that we should just do a loan and pay for it out of the proceeds of the 1% from the county, because we can do the whole project and easily with have money left over from that we paid the note, so. But in the short term, we really don't have money for that, to do continuing studies or something like that.
you can probably borrow from Business Oregon or somebody. I mean,
Yeah, and that's what
very
we,
low.
At a favorable rate.
yeah.
I mean, if it's $1 million, $1 million, that's, you know, that's easily amortized. Okay,
Right.
2 million, 2 million,
Oh, God, dear God.
2 million?
Yeah, remember, the building's 70 years old, it's, hasn't been maintained in 10 years, didn't get a lot of maintenance before that.
At least 10.
But I mean, a 10 or 20-year bond, you know, would be easily amortized with TAP money. Right?
Oh,
No, I'm sorry, not TAP, it would be
County.
advertised with.
With the county.
County funds. We wouldn't need TAP for that unless there was some sort of something you wanted to add or something like that.
okay, I think this issue has been raised, but as probably gonna take deep discussion that goes beyond the agenda for today.
I thought we were just having a discussion, that's why I brought it up.
Sure.
I'm
No,
not-
no, you were
I'm not gonna-
right.
I'm
And
not
in
gonna
order-
make a motion or anything, so, you know, don't worry, I'm not gonna make a motion, I'm not gonna make a big issue out of it, but it just seems to me that if we've got the money, you know, why not just let the, instead of taking it out of general fund, why not help fund the school? Simple as that.
Everybody on this committee was all for that, because we were trying to
Sure.
get money to the school before it even
Yep.
happened.
That's right.
I'm not okay with saying anything like that until I see the creative minds that can come up with what can we actually do next year.
Had we been given the option, we might have used most of the
Yes.
reserve that this committee had built in excess north of $300,000 for that very purpose, except that those funds were then utilized by the city rather than using general funds to support aspects of the business community in town this last summer. They shifted priorities in that fashion, and we would have had probably a great flexibility to entertain a creative notion right along the lines of what you're suggesting.
So I'm just throwing it out there, I
Yeah.
hope we can keep this discussion going, but.
Yeah.
So I'd like to keep that discussion going, because I agree with Mike, and if Mike was successful in that, that would give us the opportunity to make recommendations on projects we think might be good for the city, as opposed to having to be associated with a nonprofit, go through a whole grant process. We tried this before, we've had this discussion, right? So that, if we did what Mike just suggested, that would open the door to being able to do more of that.
Though at our last meeting, we were sort of schooled by the city council when we
right.
presented some oversight notions
Mm-hmm.
that our focus is on tourism and arts funding.
Or just arts, if you,
Or-
some of the members of the community.
Right.
To give you an idea of what the project schedule is, we will be getting a report from the architect engineers and intend to have a dedicated meeting with the council probably towards the end of October. And say, like, all it's gonna talk about is, this is what you need to fix, this is what you need to do to be able to use this building. And then anything on top of that, you know, if you want to do a stage or whatever, will all be additional.
Wow.
And that's a public meeting,
Is that a public-
happen at the end of October.
Public meeting, cool.
Come into that
I
meeting.
want to be at that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, that sounds like a good spot for that discussion. Okay, if there's anything further?
Oh,
Oh, he's thinking.
We're shooting. It's possible that we might have that meeting the week before you meet.
the building meeting, okay?
Hmm?
Possible.
Okay.
But it'll be public and noted in the post office.
Oh, sure.
Okay, well, I would like to attend that, I'd like to see what they're.
I would too.
This would be the most well-attended meeting I could think of.
Oh, no doubt.
Okay?
Okay. Check your agendas. This meeting is adjourned.
Woo-hoo.
Thank
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.